Hi everyone. I want to make a video on the way that I eat, what I eat, how I eat, and I just swear by it because I never thought that eating and food can lead to me feeling so strong, lean, healthy, and satisfied and be so simple. So I always thought that food and nutrition had to be very complicated and something that you had to really, grit through and have a lot of willpower. And it turns out that it doesn't need to be that way. I have never felt so effortlessly healthy and strong and lean in my entire life. And I'm someone who's always prioritized fitness and exercise. And I've been trying to eat the right way and eat whole foods over processed foods for a long time. And only now do I feel like I'm really reaping the benefits of that. I want to preface this by saying that I have tried every diet and way of eating in the book. I have been vegetarian, I've been vegan, I've done keto, I have done carnivore diet, and I've just eaten normally and I've just, eaten in a calorie deficit for basically my entire adult life. And I have found that the best way of eating that is the most sustainable, that will keep you satisfied, especially when you're a mom and you're trying to be fertile and get pregnant, but even outside of that, is to eat primarily whole foods over processed foods, so majority whole foods, and in moderation. So not to eat to excess. This for me is a really big sticking point because when I was vegan, I was overeating and I didn't realize that this was my primary problem. I thought that I'm eating really healthy food and I'm still hungry, so I should be listening to my body. And it turns out, even though I was including a lot of plant proteins and including lots of beautiful whole foods, vegetables, and fruits, I was eating all my fiber, I was eating healthy fats. It was not satisfying me. So it could just be, my exact body. I just felt that I wasn't fully satisfied on a vegan diet. Or when I ate to become more satiated, I almost inevitably had digestive issues as a result. And this actually ended up being years of digestive issues for me, on and off. And I was eating such a beautiful diet. I was eating the rainbow. I couldn't imagine that there was anything wrong with it. It was every, paper and study that comes out about the most healthy foods and the most suggested foods and the foods that you should be consuming every day. I was really following that to a T. I really thought I was doing the best thing for my body, but it just was not right for me and it did not have a good result for me. What resulted out of that for me was years of digestive issues, very painful, very disruptive. And I just knew that I think I knew in the back of my head that something was wrong, but I just couldn't understand what, given that I thought I was really eating the optimal human diet at the time. Now, the reason that I started eating the carnivore diet was honestly a joke. The carnivore diet had been like the butt of every joke between my husband and I for a long time. We first heard about it from Jordan and Michaela Peterson, and of course, we thought it was really extreme and funny. And at the time, we were eating a primarily vegan diet, so it was even more funny. And one day, after a particularly bad evening with digestive issues, I was telling Abby, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I am going to fix my digestive issues this year. What I didn't know at the time is that 2 days later, my digestive issues would be totally solved. Avi said to me, I think you should try the carnivore diet. And I literally laughed at him because there was no way. And 2 hours later, I was going to buy steak from the store. I then proceeded to eat a primarily carnivore diet for the next 7 months. And let me tell you, that was an interesting experience. It was mostly positive, but there were some things that were less than ideal. What basically ended up happening on the carnivore diet is I was eating steak and eggs for breakfast most mornings. I was not being totally 100% because I just could not give up my lifetime of wanting to eat fruits and vegetables. So I was still having green smoothies here and there. I was still having some of my vegetable dates, which I love, and some fruit and every so often a potato. But primarily I was eating butter, steak, and eggs, and every so often a little bit of dairy or Parmesan cheese. Initially, I felt really good on the carnivore diet. I believe it's because I suddenly getting all of this extra protein and nutrients, B12, maybe extra vitamin C, vitamin D that I had not been getting from all of the plant foods and supplementation that I had been taking. Also, just I felt much more satiated, and it just felt really good to not necessarily worry about calories or my waistline. And that's something that carnivore influencers really push. And the bad thing is, carnivore influencers also, I have found, push overeating, really eating to excess, and it's not good at all. One particular influencer called Steak and Butter Gal, who's followed by Joe Rogan, I like her personally. She seems very nice and competent and like a really driven, interesting person. And I believe that she believes in her message. However, she's rail thin and she's showing her portion. She shows meals that she eats, and it is totally unreasonable. The meals are maybe 2,000 calories a pop, and it's just full of, pork fat or beef fat and just dripping in fat. And then she'll make a butter and egg yolk sauce to dip it in. And although I believe that all of the things I just named have some nutritional benefit to the human body, the amounts that she would push to eat of those foods was just totally unreasonable and ultimately unhealthy. But even me, who's someone who has been very switched on with nutrition and has always been interested in the subject, and who was vegan for a long time and, you know, didn't eat any animal fat whatsoever, I also fell for this. I was thinking any issue I have with carnivore, the way to solve it would to be to include more animal fat in my diet. And that is what a lot of them will say for people who are bringing up some concern with, constipation or diarrhea or headaches or anything else. They talk about electrolytes, they talk about salt, and they often talk about including more animal fat in your diet. I had done some blood tests with my doctor after about a month and a half of carnivore, and for that, I had always had pretty picture perfect blood tests, even during my fruitarian days and my vegan days. I always would pass with flying colors, and everything looked really good. After carnivore, of course, my LDL cholesterol was very high. And although my ratio of HDL to LDL cholesterol was still okay, the doctor told me I had a 50% chance, actually, of dropping dead of a heart attack in 5 to 10 years. So, of course, this freaked me out just a little bit, but at the same time, I was feeling really sure of myself, thinking that, we have new information on cholesterol. It's not exactly what doctors used to think it was. And it's not necessarily, a prescription if you just have very high LDL cholesterol. It also depends on your insulin resistance and other things. Now, I'm no doctor, so I don't want to get into those things as much, although I did do some research on it after the doctor had told me that. But if I was being completely honest with myself, I did feel slightly uncomfortable on carnivore. Although my body remained slim and strong, I was also still very active. I did not gain any weight on carnivore. In fact, I may have slimmed out and my body composition changed for the better, and I was happy about that. I did feel like my blood was pumping a little bit harder. I did feel that after meals, sometimes my veins in my arms would pop out a little bit more than usual. I felt like sometimes they stung a little bit. It felt a little sensitive, and I'm very tuned in with my body. I was getting certain feelings in my body that I didn't like, and that raised little alarm bells for me. I did continue to love how the food tasted, to be honest, and how satiated I felt. And I started to realize that the way I wanted to eat was to be able to eat any food I wanted to eat when I wanted to eat it and feel good, which sounds very simple, but for some reason in my adult life, it had always been so difficult. What I decided one day was that I am going to try to continue to eat animal products, but also to include the fruits and vegetables that I love and just eat less and to listen to my body more. Instead of following influencers, I thought I am going to eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full and stay hydrated and eat whatever I feel is right. I just decided I'm going to eat whole, real foods, but enjoy food instead of just restricting. I was so tired of restricting foods, restricting entire food groups, whether it be vegan or carnivore or fruitarian. All of those things are just extremes. And I realized that it just was not the right way to eat. And I really was missing Not just nutritionally, I was missing out, but also just in experience. In the last few months, I have been eating everything I've wanted to eat in moderation. So I stop eating now any meal when I'm about 75% full and I wait. And after I wait for about 10-15 minutes, if I'm still hungry, I eat until I'm about 85% full. But I don't eat above that. I stop right before I'm actually full and I try to enjoy every bite that I take. I also have a policy of not listening to anything while I'm eating, not watching anything while I'm eating, and honestly, not even really doing anything else. I like to eat sitting down, ideally with other people, talking and just relaxing. I take a few deep breaths before I eat. Before deciding that I'm hungry, I definitely make sure that I'm hydrated. For me, meal times are a real treat. So I'm happy to sit and eat with my kids. However, if they start asking me to get them something else from the refrigerator or to do something for them, I tell them I'm eating right now and I can get it for you later, or you can get it yourself or ask someone else in the house to get it for you. I really try to prioritize peace while I'm eating. I used to think that it was harmless to play a game of chess on my phone or to listen to a podcast while I was eating, but now I realize that it really disrupted my hunger cues and it disrupted how much I enjoyed my meal because often I would just find that suddenly my plate was empty and I barely tasted what was on it because I was too busy thinking about the next chess move. Honestly, these things have been game changers for me. Something else I love to do is once I've had my meal, in particular at night, I love to make my big cup of tea. So I always end the night with tea, and I find that it is the perfect way to really show me if I am full. If by the time my tea is ready, I still feel like eating, I will get another plate of food very happily. But very often, by the time that tea is ready, I'm ready to drink my tea and brush my teeth. This way of eating, not just the foods that I'm eating, but also all of those tips where I don't eat distracted, I don't eat when I'm anxious, I don't eat rushed, and I don't worry about the next time I'm going to eat. All of those things have led me to a really healthy place with food. As a mom, I very often used to worry about going on an outing on a weekend and when I was going to have a meal. I wanted to make sure I was up early so not only I could prep all of the kids' food for the day, but also my food for the day, and it needed to be ready or it should be ready for when I get home. And I just decided one day I don't want to stress over food, and it's also no emergency if I'm hungry. So, of course, I prep food if I can, but it will be okay if I get home and I feel hungry and I calmly prep my food. In fact, the food will probably taste better if I'm really hungry. I find that as long as I stay hydrated and as long as I prioritize protein, I feel pretty good throughout the day, even when I'm really hungry and ready to have my meal. These points have really all been game changers for me. I would love to have a conversation further about this, about food. I could talk in much more detail about the vegan diet and the fruitarian diet and the carnivore diet and all the different ways that I used to swear by with eating and tell you more about why I don't think they work. Definitely didn't work for me, and I think it's probably not ideal for everyone. I really think it's important instead to listen to your body and prioritize how you feel. And don't let thoughts and ideas about particular ways of eating get in the way of your intuition. In particular, for my ladies out there, I think that eating is such a big subject and just so rife with confusion. Everyone is trying to sell something and sell a quick fix. And I think that the quick fix is to eat what you want, primarily whole foods, and in moderation. I have gone back and forth between restricting what I ate and then eating to excess in every kind of diet, both on a vegan diet and on an animal-based diet or a carnivore diet. And I'm telling you, the best thing to do for your body and for your mind is to eat in moderation and to eat what you want to eat, and you will just feel so much more even and so much more at peace. I hope to make more videos about nutrition and eating, especially as a mom when we're so busy and distracted and just trying to take care of everyone else over ourselves. It's time to start taking care of ourselves as well. Maybe it gives you some hope if you are in any phase of having digestive issues or trying to reevaluate your diet or whatever is going on with you. It is always a journey. So I hope we can talk about it more soon. Write down in the comments if you have any questions about any particular part, and I'll talk about it more. All right, everyone, have a great day.